Welcome back. Let's continue our journey here. Support for entrepreneurial ventures. So when we began this whole journey and when we began to create the whole roadmap here, the whole series of presentations, as you can well imagine, a lot of efforts have gone into it. This has been months in coming. So a lot of discussions, obviously, feasibility for our proposals here, a lot of background work, detailed research analysis has gone into it. And we hope you appreciate all the effort that we have gone through to be able to put together the whole presentation for you. Um, in many of the areas, obviously, everyone who was involved at different points in the whole presentation, there was a concurrence in terms of how we should approach this. In some areas, there was some difference of opinion. So this is one of those areas. So again, we'll post the questions here, and then we'll provide you both sides of the analysis here. And again, we'll let you comment on it on what which way we should be leaning. So here we will tell you what our initial recommendation was, and then we'll tell you what made us change our mind in terms of changing our recommendation. So, small business in many parts of the world. Okay, actually, let's pause on that. Let's go to a bigger level picture. For many countries of the world, the predominant part of the GDP is government expenditure. So that's when government is the largest employer, and they employ, especially in the countries where the government runs the healthcare, where the government runs all the hospitals, all the schools. So just between these two, healthcare and education, they end up becoming the largest employer in many of those countries, and especially true for some of the European countries, they also run some of the largest industries as well. So, by extension, by definition, they become the largest employer in those countries. Many of the other Western countries, US included, are not like that. Government obviously has got a sizable government across state and federal, but the largest employer of the country is so-called small businesses. So the private entities, the mom and pop stores, the small businesses, they're the so-called largest employers of the country. They are the ones do bulk of the employment. So majority of the people who work for these entities. Of course, people work for large companies as well, but that pales in comparison in terms of the sheer value. So because of this factor, there's obviously a huge demand for a very strong, very robust small business administration, for small business support department in countries like this. So therefore, anyone who wants to set up their own entity, they've got access to some resources which are critically required. Some business support, some startup support, some support with funding, with capital. So if you put up half the money, the government can underwrite programs to give you the other half. As a part of our consulting practice, small business support is a huge part of what we operate. We've got whole series of courses, coaching practices, experience in small businesses. So we thought it's a it's an easy target for us to include some of our presentations here and say, hey, let them apply to Pakistan as well, small business support. But after a lot of careful analysis, we decided to hold off on that with the principal thought that Pakistan, at this point in time, what Pakistan's needs are. And we'll give you again both the options. Should Pakistan, so the question in front of us is should Pakistan provide support to small business ventures now, or should it not? So the principal question that we are trying to look at is what's Pakistan's main need right now? Time and time again, we have made presentation. We're trying to make a compelling argument. Is that Pakistan, this is 2023, at this precise point in their journey, they need to reestablish their manufacturing base. So the goods that we used to make at some point in time, and we had a large global monopoly on those areas, we need to recapture that. We have lost some of the stronghold that we used to have. We need to not just recapture that, we need to find other areas, other avenues, other verticals where we could become a strong manufacturing force as well. So if that's the case, then where does the small business come in? In our careful analysis, we believe that this is not the time when we should be supporting small businesses in Pakistan for multiple factors. Small business challenges are sizable, and even though we have got a major consulting arm that we consult with small businesses, we help them grow. We help them set up the shop, we help them reach profitability. They still remain small for a very long period of time unless there's substantial cash infusement, or if there are they end up with, they get lucky, they end up with some large contracts, or one of the products goes viral, which again is not something that you can easily depend upon. So, if that's the case, if Pakistan's needs are that Pakistan needs to become a manufacturing company, so it's in our analysis, it's not likely for a startup today to become the principal manufacturing concern in the short amount of time. So, with that, we're trying to put our emphasis on not supporting small businesses right now at this stage. And when do we start using that? We'll come to that in just a moment. Please bear with us as we go through this presentation here. So, our recommendation is for Pakistan to put all their focus, all their muscle, their energy toward establishing a business climate for large entities, for companies that can come in, set up the factory, set up the shop, and start manufacturing goods. Goods that we can export, goods that we can consume internally and therefore save on our foreign exchange money going out, and goods that we can sell to other countries and of course make money in the process. So every person in the country, every person of age who's got the skills or who can eventually, hopefully, with some training and vocational programs availability, be trained to work in these factories at different level. Whether it's we're talking about executive overview, management, line management, manufacturing, quality, which whatever division you might be working in, we want everyone to work in these factories and put your muscles, put your energy, put your resources towards the manufacturing process. This is where Pakistan needs to be right now, and this is our recommendation that we should be focusing on this. Down the road, though, we'll identify areas where we need separate companies to be spun off. And the people who are involved with these companies at the onset, at the beginning of the process, some of them, the entrepreneurs of these, will end up spotting those opportunities and setting up this to set up their own spin-offs, and they'll provide services. They'll then be acquired by these by the main parent companies, and that's the normal progression of things. That's invariably how things operate. A company under one umbrella cannot obviously try to handle all aspects of their operation. Some of them, they could be sub-assemblies that are best handled by somebody else who becomes a specialist in that, and the main company acquires them. If you we gave earlier on in one of our other slides, the presentations, the example of an automotive, of a car. When a car company, Toyota, Ford, Mercedes, whatever the brand might be, they are eventually responsible for the assembly of the final product. They don't make each and every component. The battery is made by a battery store. The infotainment system is made by a business which specializes in that. The transmission is made by a company which specializes in that. Chassis is done either internally or also outsourced. All of those goods products in sub-assembly state, they come to the main warehouse where the car maker puts them all together, puts their own logo on them, and they sell the cars as a completely made model. So those sub-assemblies are done by somebody else. So that's the point that we're making here, is that once we spin off these companies, once we start operating and maximizing the scale, then there would be needs for these entrepreneurs to come forward to set up their own shops and their own supporting entities. At this point in time, we must be focusing on these on these large companies and not quite on the small businesses. Now, this is all one side of the equation here. The counter argument to this is countries have thrived, not just survived, countries have thrived on the shoulders of these small business owners. They bring out innovation. They bring in create the activity, the level of activity that can then get translates into the whole enterprise zone creation, into massive product and services availability at the whole company level. India is an example of that. Ireland would be an example of that. Even Israel would be an example of that, how they've set up their own industries by share all the strength of their other entrepreneurs that are running these companies. So again, the counterpoint to this counter argument is the fact that for these companies, for the entrepreneurs to thrive, There needs to be a viable entity first where they become the service provider. If an entrepreneur to set up a shop in Pakistan today, they need to be providing services to an existing entity. What would be that entity? That's where the gap is right now. And that therefore sort of underlines our recommendation that right now the focus must be on establishing the industries that will eventually require these entrepreneurs to come on board and to provide the services. Okay, so this said though, we just these are just our points and our counterpoints. We would love to. There's no slides here, no further information that we could share here at this stage. But we'd love to hear from you. Please provide your comments down below so we could maybe have a discussion. And eventually, if we do end up creating a task force on this particular topic, your feedback will become very handy. And the task force then would then have to create a roadmap, checkpoint, or a task list. They'll say which will effectively say that we can shift our focus when these conditions have been met. And at that point in time, we can enable the whole small business administration and support division, which can then help support the individual entrepreneurs who want to set up their own shops. Okay, all right. Let's now continue with the next slide.